September 13th, 2021, and this is the Goffstown Select Board meeting. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please all join me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Normally at this time, we'd go right into acceptance and correction of minutes, but Chief Serino would like to say a few words.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Real quick, I just wanted to, if the board would entertain, maybe a quick moment of silence for one of our officers in our neighborhood community, Tom Ouellette, who was, if you haven't heard, was involved in a horrific traffic accident on Friday and lost 2 out of his 4 children instantaneously on the side of the highway. It's pretty much shocked our law enforcement community in southern New Hampshire, if not all of New Hampshire. Some of our members knew Tom or know him and his family. It's been a pretty humbling experience to see what's going on behind the scenes here with him and his family, but he tragically lost both of his oldest and his youngest in his second. So if the board didn't mind, if we could just do a quick moment of silence for that.
I don't think anybody, so we'll do that.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair and the board. Just makes you think about holding your family a little bit tighter. Thank you very much, sir.
I can't imagine the devastation that must be at some, just not even for Bo and with, like you say, the police community and any of the life safety community. It's got to be tough to go through that. Nobody wants to see that happen.
It is a small community for us in the state, and we all know each other one way or another, and it's been affecting all of us. So we're all working hard to kind of keep moving forward, but that's definitely been a challenge. So.
Yeah, we do share a lot with those communities. Are we going to do anything, Peter, do you think as a board would be appropriate to?
As a town, maybe we could send something out.
I think
I
we
know, I know the department has approached the Trestle about maybe doing something on a Saturday afternoon. That's just, in the works, I understand. But
Okay, yeah.
as far as the town, I would think that maybe something in condolence, a letter of condolence to the.
Yeah, and it's a worthy cause. And
Yep.
I've seen several of them have been set up. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That would be appreciated. Thank you very
No
much.
problem. Back to our agenda then. The acceptance and correction of minutes from 8/23/21 public and non-public.
I'll make a motion, we accept the 8/23/21 public and non-public minutes with corrections if need be.
Second. Motion by Mark, seconded by Jim. Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes. And then the 8:30 meeting.
I'll make a motion, we accept the 8/30/21 public and non-public minutes with corrections if need be.
Second. Motion by Mark, again seconded by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining. I think was that the one I was absent from?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, I abstain on that one. Motion passes 4-0. No announcements, Derek?
I don't have any announcements right now.
Anybody got anything, any announcements? No? Won't you start, Derek?
Okay, if you'll jump to tab 8, you'll find the town administrator's report. You have your committee meeting scheduled for the next 2 weeks. Tomorrow night at 6 p.m. the sewer commission is meeting in this room.
I'll be there.
At 6:30 on Wednesday, the library trustees will be meeting.
I'll be there.
At 7 p.m. on Wednesday, Parks and Rec Commission will be meeting.
I can't meet that meeting.
When is that, Wednesday?
Wednesday night at 7.
I'll cover it for you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next week, 7 p.m., the Budget Committee will be meeting over at the High School Media Center, library.
Yep.
On Wednesday at 6:30 p.m., the HTC will be meeting at Grassmere Town Hall.
Yep.
7 p.m. next Wednesday, Conservation Commission will be meeting.
Yep. Yes.
And Thursday at 7 p.m., Planning Board.
Yes.
Great. Your next page, you have the consent agenda, you have employee status reports, you have a dispatcher resignation, DPW truck driver new hire, you have a seasonal laborer resignation, 2 engineering intern resignations, a part-time firefighter new hire, a full-time firefighter resignation, and a part-time assessing secretary resignation. You have the lease for Mary Lou at Grassmere Town Hall that was approved on May 24th that needs a signature of the entire board. There's an event permit for Millennium Running Manchester City Marathon on November 7th, pretty much all day. Rights to inter at Shirley Hill Cemetery, Section 1, Lot 101, Shirley Hill Cemetery, Section 1, Lot 103, and Shirley Hill Cemetery, Section 2, Lots 48A and 49A. And then a petition and poll license on Mountain Road for PSNH. And there was one item that we added to the signature folder this afternoon. That was a memorandum of understanding between the town and the patrol union.
Yep. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda
Second.
As presented.
as presented.
Any discussion, questions? Seeing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained?
At your next page, you have your assessor's recommendation. He's got a report of timber cut and timber tax warrants, which is recommended for map 3, lot 31-1.
Motion to approve the assessor's recommendation as presented for map 3, lot 31-1.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Chet. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, seeing none, motion passes.
At your next page, you have volunteer appointment. You have a recommendation from the planning board to appoint Jacob LaFontaine as a full member on the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission with a term expiring June 30th, 2025.
Make a motion to appoint Jacob LaFontaine to the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission as a full member with a term expiring June 30, 2025.
Second. Motion by Carl, seconded by Jim. Any discussion, questions? Hearing, seeing none, motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
And the final item, you have a memo from the finance director. On the meeting on August 9th, the Public Works Director brought in bid results for the wheeled excavator and talked about savings in other lines to make up for at that time it was $9,000 because there was savings on another CIP line. This is the budget transfer from those lines. We'd like to keep the entire purchase price of the wheeled excavator in that CIP line to show the history rather than coding it to other expense lines.
So if I understand what you're saying is that these are funds that were not expended under the CIP, so you're just moving them to that piece of equipment?
Yes, yep, so the DPW director has found savings in other locations or changes how he's gonna use the budget, and we just wanna make sure that the entire expenditure lives in that expense line, so that the history's there.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget transfer request for the reallocation of $11,308 from the various budget lines to the DPW CIP machinery and equipment line as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Motion by Chet, seconded by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, seeing none. At this time, we will open up our first public comment section. Is there anybody here for public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm David Pierce, 21 Mill Street. And as you can tell from my shirt I'm wearing this evening, I'm here because I'm an officer in the Friends of the Rail Trail. I'm very happy to announce that on September 3rd, the New Hampshire Bureau of Trails awarded the Friends of the Rail Trail a recreational trails program grant for 2022. This grant will enable us to improve the 2/3 of a mile that is between Lynchville Park Road and Moose Club Park Road. I'm very thrilled for that grant. It's significant because the recreational trails program only has about $250,000 in their budget for each year. and consequently, they will award only one project on the order of $100,000, and then all the other dozen activities get much smaller amounts, and this was our year. This is the third time I've applied for that particular section, and it worked.
So it was $100,000?
The grant is actually $70,000, more or less. My organization will match that with $20,000 in cash. If all goes well, I hope to hire a contractor with that $90,000 and improve the 2/3 of a mile a year from now.
Excellent.
I will come back before the board I'll coordinate with Derek, and I'll come back before the board at an appropriate time for you to accept a donation of this project.
Good job, David, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Onward and upward, right on the trail. Is there anybody else here? Public comment? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the Village Piscataqua River Pedestrian Bridge Ad Hoc Committee presentation of the final report and recommendation.
And the chairman is not here quite yet. I did see him earlier this morning. We had that scheduled for 6:15.
So we've got another 5 minutes?
Yeah, perhaps you could take either the fire chief or the DPW.
Why don't I go ahead and take the fire chief?
Good evening, everyone.
You're beaming, Chief.
I am beaming a little bit, and that's certainly because of the first topic I'd like to talk about, which is the 2020, it's coming out in 2021 SAFER grant that we submitted for earlier this year in March. And I'm happy to report that we were one of 2 departments in New Hampshire that successfully be granted the SAFER grant for this year. We're one of 203 nationwide, and I think there was 1,500 departments that put in for the grant, so extremely competitive. Just to remind everyone, this was the grant that's 100% paid for 3 years for the hiring of 4 additional firefighters. And I was here tonight to get the grant's approval to go ahead and accept that grant.
Make a motion to accept FEMA SAFER grant.
Second.
Motion by Chet, seconded by Collis. Is there any discussion or questions?
Chief, how many, I'm sorry, 4, right?
4.
Person?
Yep.
And for how many years?
3 years.
And the town's contribution is?
0.
Just want to get that on the record, and some people are watching. Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
0 for the next 3 years, and then after that, we accept the total package.
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? Motion passes.
I have one other thing, if you still have time.
Yeah, I think
Go ahead.
the next one will be pretty quick.
The next one is, I mentioned earlier this year that we were waiting for a proposal on formal quotation to move forward with the purchase of our ambulance that was scheduled to be purchased this year. I'm looking for the board's authorization this year to award that to PL Custom using the HGAC buyback program, which we're members of. So that's a nationwide program that they do all the negotiating out ahead of time and come up with contractual prices that they have to maintain. So that affords towns like us not to have to go out and do the bidding process. They've already done it for us. So I'm looking for the board's authorization to do that. On the memo I submitted, the second page is where I was looking for some guidance from the board. They have a delivered price, $256,999.99. There's some buyback of, or forward concession, I'm sorry, the first one is the $53.65. And they also offer a $1,000 discount if we pay for the chassis up front. So that's one question I have for the board. The chassis is just over $50,000. So if we were to pay for that up front, they would give us an additional $1,000 off. And then the second question I have for the board is, they're offering a $3,500 payment for a trade-in. I didn't know if the board wanted to do that or go out to municipal bid, which the DPW director has been doing, and it sounds like Ben having some pretty good success this year. So,
Let's take these one at a time.
sure.
$1,000 discount. Now, this is coming out of the ambulance fund, right?
Correct.
So these aren't funds that are raised by taxes, these are funds that are sitting more or less in an ambulance fund, so it makes sense if we have the money there to save $1,000.
Yep.
Yep.
All agree on it.
Yeah, in years past, the last 2 ambulances we bought, we prepaid the chassis and everything like that, and it's worked out very well. It saved us a significant amount of money. I'd be in favor of it.
'Cause this is gonna save us $1,000, so we're all
Yep.
pretty much okay with that.
Yep.
Now, the next one is the,
The trade-in value, the last kind of bold statement. Mr.
we've been
Chairman.
doing pretty good going outside on the trades though, haven't we? I'm gonna ask Adams,
I think the answer is yes, but I would rather you hear that from Adam.
seems like it's been pretty active out there as far as trading stuff.
Yes,
Or-
we've had some pretty competitive trade-in allowances on the last couple of bids, but we've had great success so far with the municipal, and we've got the excavator. I'll give one of my items away early. We've got the excavator listed on municipal right now with about a week to go, and it's doing pretty well already. We did a reserve price hold on that, so I
Which we
would-
could do.
the chief could do the same and be reasonably
I
soon.
would probably, I would like to recommend that,
Yep.
Okay.
I agree with that.
if that's okay, Chief. I mean-
That's fine with me, yeah.
Anything else?
No, I a motion, Mr. Administrator?
Yeah, there's a motion at the bottom of his memo. There is a typo, a slight typo in there. I provided the motion, but it should, instead of 221, it should be a 2021 EMS fund budget.
I'll make the motion, we approve the purchase of a 2021 PL Custom Ambulance, which was budgeted for in the 2021 EMS fund operating budget, utilizing the Houston-Galveston Area Council Procurement Program in accordance with Section 6.6 of the Town Purchasing Policy.
Isn't that supposed to be 2022?
20,
No, this is the 2021. This is out of this year's.
Yeah, but the vehicle's a 2022, isn't it? Because according to
Yes,
the,
it is.
if you go to the other,
Yep.
you go to the
Yep.
next page, it says deliver a 2022 Ford F-450.
Yes, so
so I'll retract my statement where instead of being 2021, it'll be 2022 and 2022 EMS fund.
it's 2021 EMS fund.
2020, yeah.
Because that was voted
Yeah,
as part of the
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
operating budget.
yeah.
So the motion is, we're gonna buy a 2022 Ford F-450 out of the 2021
EMS fund.
EMS fund.
There we go. And I'll second that.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Chet. Any discussion? Seeing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes. And we're gonna put the other truck out, the jug.
All right, thank you very
By the way,
much.
Chief, you'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you for all your work on that
Yes.
SAFER grant.
Oh,
And I think it
very welcome.
positions our community in a real good place, at least in the short term, for the next 3 years, to provide adequate services for the citizens of the town. In the 3 years, we'll see where we are and go from there. Thank you for your efforts on that.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
And I think it's Andrew's time to come up. And again, we're gonna have the Village Pecasqua River Pedestrian Bridge Ad Hoc Committee presentation on the final report and recommendations.
What did you call it? The village what? What's the name of the river?
The Village Piscataqua
Quag.
Quag.
Piscataqua. So that's
Yeah, well,
Piscataqua somewhere else. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Derek did circulate the report around, so you should have received it, I think, at the last select
Yes.
board meeting.
Yep. And I've got extra
I didn't
copies.
see one.
Mr. Chairman, before Andy starts, you probably know I've been kind of involved with this right from the get-go and kind of pushing this through, but I'm not going to recuse myself from the discussion. I certainly don't have any personal interest in this, nor any pecuniary interest, so I'm going to remain at the table as opposed to recusing myself unless someone on the board has a different opinion.
Well, I don't think that you would recuse yourself, and we all have served on committees that,
No, you know.
that's what we're here for. Go for it, Andrew.
All right, first, I'd like to thank the select board. This was a great committee, and I was happy to be part of it, so thank you. I'm glad you put this forward and created this committee. Second, I'd like to thank the people that were on the committee everyone on the committee, I think the report is a great report. We all worked hard, and so I just want to take some time to thank Selectman Adams, thank Paula Bedard, thank Alan Gammons, thank Bonnie Guervin, David Neiman, Eric Slassen, Ellen Romokowitz, Rick Wilhelm, and Jonathan Allard. It was really a great committee, so thank you. And then just because there's people watching, I figured I would hit the mission, the objectives, and the deliverables. So the mission of the committee was to explore opportunities and obstacles for constructing a pedestrian bridge across the Piscataqua River in the location of the former railroad bridge that was destroyed by fire. The main objective was to maintain a natural resource and provide an appropriate level of public access with minimal impact to abutting properties. And then our deliverables of the committee was to, the committee shall evaluate the results, committee's evaluation shall result in a report detailing the feasibility of the construction of a pedestrian bridge in the location of the former railroad bridge across the Piscataqua River. In the village, the report should include considerations for property acquisitions, swaps, design elements, budget estimates, and suggestions for funding. So with that, I do want to kind of start off and just say when we started this, we did look at the master plan too. And on page 17 in here, we have an alignment with the rail trail and the pedestrian bridge. The pedestrian bridge was mentioned twice in the master plan, and numerous comments about, from community engagement, the value of the rail trail, the value of natural resources. And so when you look at this, I hope you also review the master plan to kind of think about that. Next is, I'm just going to kind of quickly go through some of the highlights of this and then hit back to the deliverables. We did have like a preliminary assessment of the abutments, and I do want to thank the Economic Development Committee for funding that. This was a key thing for us to even begin work. You'll see in our deliverables, you know, this was really a visual inspection, so really the next level was even to get below the water to look at this. So that's an important point to note. And then on page 21, we did go through some of the potential resources for funding such an initiative, but we are not experts on funding and grant writing, and so you'll see the deliverables is to really allocate some time to this. We believe there are absolutely resources out there to help fund this. Some of the stuff through the county may be available. Through the state, we referenced some of the federal stimulus funds, and we strongly believe that there are resources really to fund a good portion of this, but we're not experts in this. And then the very last page, I just want to point, this is the rail trail, and it breaks out projects that have been funded and ones that are in work. David Pierce had mentioned to me, one of the large ones actually just got announced that it has received funding. But we do see this as a holistic approach that you just can't do the bridge and not have, there's a couple opportunities. One, wrapping it with the completion of the rail trail really makes a nice package and probably would be, you know, for the small investment to combine them, a better package to put forward. And then, you know, certainly the end of the rail trail onto the bridge would be a wonderful thing for the community. And stop me if you have questions. So I'm just going to go to the executive summary. Again, there's a strong alignment between this and the master plan. We wanted to call that out. One of the first action steps is really negotiating with the Rotary Club for what the access is. The bridge abutment on the north side is part of the Rotary Club's parcel. We looked at that. We didn't get a surveyor, but based on what we researched and found, that abutment is part of the Rotary Club, and that has to be resolved before you can move forward. Again, the second deliverable would be, we strongly believe wrapping it up with the rail trail makes a better package, holistic approach to something that the community clearly wants when you look at the master plan. We were volunteer committee, we're not experts in this, so the next one was allocate resources. We kind of ran into some obstacles when we were looking at the assessment, you know, hiring someone to tell us if the bridge abutments are even good. The next level is absolutely going to require resources allocated to it, another assessment, full feasibility assessment, you know, someone who can actually investigate funding sources, put together a plan, And when it comes down to bridge designs, we did the best we could in bridge designs, but we are not bridge engineers. And so I think one of the recommendations would be to pull together someone to lead this project who has that experience. And then the last two deliverables are around engaging with the county for possible grant funding and/or Southern New Hampshire planning, because they may have experience or may have the ability to help us move this forward, financing and pulling together a project that would be approved for some grant funding. We did estimate the cost, really, very rough estimate based on our very limited knowledge, between 300, 600,000, depending on how it's placed in the abutment. We heard from one town where they basically skipped over the abutments and built on the other side, so they didn't have to do any work to the abutment. And then there's other towns that put it on the abutment and then you have to shore up the abutments. Depends on the wood how you constructed it, whether it's a precast steel structures, you see some examples in here, or some hybrid. And then if you wrap in the rail trail, it could range from, this is very broad, 600 to 900,000, and that depends on, as David Pierce may be able to explain a little bit more, there's a 30% markup if it's funded by federal funds, so that's not even part of the project, it's just part of the process, is my understanding. And I do want to thank David for his help in pulling together the maps in here, and some grant information on projects that he's worked on that may be potential resources. And with that, I thank you. We have the parts of the team here, so if you have any questions and I can't answer them, they may answer them.
First of all, thanks everybody for their hard work on this. This is quite a good report. I guess my question is to Derek or anybody is we have I guess it's just kind of skimmed the top of it. Is that more or less what I understand? And
yeah, I would say we were a feasibility type, is this possible? And, even with interviewing other towns, it's absolutely possible, absolutely possible. It's putting the resources in to negotiating with the Rotary Club. That's beyond us. We can't negotiate on the town. Hiring an engineer to really say, what's it going to take to build this here?
so what happens? What's next then? You have to hire a design engineer, or the abutments have to be studied? I mean, is there a way, a person that you go to that says, okay, what do we do next?
You'd probably want to talk to, whether you put it out to bid or to have an engineering firm see, because the design is going to depend a lot on how structurally sound those abutments are. We did get a little bit of an idea from the initial evaluation that's in the report, but they did note that they would need a little bit further and to look under the water before they could make a true representation what's able to be done. And then once you know what can be done, they'd be able to help design what the actual bridge would be.
When we talked to Peterborough, they had the engineer look at the abutments and come up with a couple different designs with different prices. And that's really, I think, the next level to really figure out where this can go.
But he can't do that until he knows what the shape of the abutments are. Would that be accurate?
Absolutely.
So the first thing you have to do then is you have to hire an engineering firm and to go in and look at the abutments, which probably wouldn't happen now till spring or so anyway.
Yeah, and I think one of the recommendations, and correct me, I don't have it in front of me, Andy, was to set up a design committee that's going to take it to the next step, which really gets down to the design, actually the specific design characteristics of what it's going to take.
Correct.
But personally, I don't think it's a big leap. I think basically, if you look at the bridge that connects Manchester, take that bridge and we put another one just like it over here. It's going to carry the same live loads, the same design loads. The span's a little different, but I would imagine the structure would be the same. In fact, I think we probably want the structures to look similar so that it's cohesive. But the next step certainly is going to be to set up another committee to look specifically at design issues, and that's where we reach out to Hoyle Tanner. Hoyle Tanner did the Singer Bridge, so they're familiar with it. And they're familiar, and they've worked with us before. And they did the preliminary abutment evaluation.
Yep.
But so that's the first thing before a design. You got to know what kind of a design, what the abutments are. As Andrew said, some of them, there's built bridges that didn't even use the abutments. And if the abutments are no good, well then you may look at something like that. So I don't know if the design committee does that, or you get the engineering study first and then determine where you go from there.
I would assume that we set up a design committee, they put out RFPs to engineering firms. Say, hey,
Yeah, we were thinking of more of like that, where there's, there's another committee that kind of creates a process for the next steps, because there's a couple stages. There's not just the abutment, but then there's going to be working to design, there's going to be community outreach, there's going to need to be some funding process, and we don't know if that is, you hire a consultant to do all that, or do you set up a committee like what we have and you allocate resources for us to hire piece consultants? I'm not sure of the process.
Well, I think that the next thing is, if that's the direction, you have to have a budget. And at this time, you don't have a budget, or we don't have a budget for that. So somebody needs to come up with a dollar value and say, okay, this is how much it's gonna cost. And then we go forward from there to the budget process and the budget committee and the whole 9 yards. That opens it up to more, scrutiny, to be honest with you. I mean,
yeah, that's why I think the RFP process will come in. We'll look for engineering firms to give us proposals. We'll look at the proposals and evaluate them and weigh them once against the other. It'll give us a more concrete idea of what the cost is going to be and what we need to do moving forward. We're pretty familiar with that here in this town, about how to work with the RFP process and select contractors.
Is it okay to ask if anybody on the committee?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. If anybody else wants
Anybody
to
on the committee want to say
chime in.
anything else, or have any other comments I didn't touch on?
I'd just like to repeat what Andy mentioned earlier about we need to early on have discussions with the Rotary clubs, since they don't own the entire Rotary Park, it turns out, but they own the piece of it that the abutment's on, so any differences?
well, I think, David, once we get to that point that, we decide we're gonna go in that direction, well, then you will have to deal with them. I mean, that's just the way it works, and if one of us has to get involved and talk to them, I mean, any one of us can jump on that bandwagon. I mean, but I think we need to go one step at a time first.
And if I can reiterate, I would also like to share my appreciation with all the members of the ad hoc committee. I've been involved with committees and whatnot over the years, and these folks are really engaged. They brought a lot of knowledge to the table. They weren't bashful about contributing and speaking up and weighing in onto their opinions and thoughts and whatnot. It was a really engaging ad hoc committee. I just really appreciate what they brought.
Great.
All right, well, thank you guys very much, and we'll have to discuss amongst us eventually what we're gonna do, which direction we'll take. So maybe we could put that on an agenda for another meeting. I can't do it right now, I mean. Okay? Thank you very much. Again, thank you all for participating.
Thank you for heading that up, Andrew.
DPW Director.
Hello again.
We're at tab 6.
Okay, so for this item tonight, as you see in the memo, the town purchasing policy allows us for purchases over $10,000 to take advantage of state contracts, lowercase s, so not just New Hampshire but other states, or cooperative purchasing agreements. Reason for the request tonight would be to extend that either just in this case or maybe going forward to include instances where other municipalities, either in New Hampshire or elsewhere, have done a formal sealed bid process. If we're satisfied, or the finance director and the department head are satisfied with the process used, that it was, giving all vendors a fair chance to bid, and they were selected, fairly. I think it'd be a good opportunity to allow us to be able to be a little bit more nimble on the front end of something like this. The reason for this request is that this year we've, due to staffing, last year due to equipment issues and staffing, we weren't able to get our Vector truck around very good chunk of the town. The sewer commission, who split that purchase originally, made the decision last year to start contracting out that work going forward, and I think they were happy with the results, so they're going to continue to do that from their annual operating budget. I think DPW can benefit from a similar model going forward. The machines are very expensive to replace, upwards of over $500,000, which we had in CIP coming up. I removed that from the CIP matrix this year with the intention to increase our operating budget for drainage maintenance a little bit, to be able to contract out structures, still maintain the existing machine we have for emergencies. We use it for both catch basin cleaning, pipeline cleaning if there's a blockage. If we have a night call-in where maybe the local catch basin cleaning company can't get a Vector truck out there at 2 a.m., but the resident's basement's backing up, that kind of thing. It's nice to have an emergency piece of equipment. So the idea being we'd ride that as long as possible, and then maybe make some decisions about either a smaller unit that can still take care of some of those emergencies without having to get around, half the town in one day, to have a large tank size and a large capacity. So I think we've got some decisions to make going forward on that piece of equipment, but for the short run, I'd like to get in this year and get some of these basins cleaned. We have some for our MS4 permit, especially that outfall into the lake, that really need to be maintained to make sure those sumps that catch all the debris and contaminants don't overflow and then clog the pipe, but also silt into the lake. So I'd like to spend some money up from our drainage maintenance line to get that done. And we found a contractor that was a low bid contractor for the city of Dover. They had a sealed bid process this year. The reviews have been good for them. Triton Stormwater is the name of the company. And we'd like to use that process and that result for us this year. And I'd also request the board entertain maybe amending the purchasing policy going forward to include that any competitively bid municipal contracts as well as state and cooperative if we see fit. But for purposes tonight, just that one for Triton Stormwater would be the request. Let's use that.
First question I have is, the outfit you said is out of Dover?
So the city of Dover was the sealed bid process. Triton Stormwater is actually a Rhode Island company, but they were significantly lower than the cost of anybody either in New Hampshire or Mass that bid on Dover's project. We weren't sure initially how many we were going to do, so we tried to line up some quotes here when it became pretty clear it was going to be over 10,000 to get a couple hundred structures done. We had to kind of shift and look to see if we were going to put it out to bid and whether or not we had time in the season to get that done, or if we'd try to piggyback on a state or another contract. They were the low quote for our local process too, but because of the end result being over 10, it kind of resulted us to look in other ways to get them on board. We did not receive a quote from Bellamore, which is a local company that we've used in the past and that the sewer department's used. I don't know if they just couldn't fit it in their schedule in the fall or if they felt they couldn't compete. I don't know what the reason was.
So this is for the rest of this year?
This will be for the rest of 2021.
And then would it be your intention to put it out for full bid next year?
We'd include it in our spring or late winter bid list as one of the items that we put out and try to get our own local,
And we probably wouldn't be putting good money into bad if we continued, if that truck keeps breaking down and our truck. Seems like it's always got an issue.
It's a hard-working piece of equipment, and we probably have used it for things that it maybe wasn't really intended for in some cases. Well, if we have a tricky situation in Penardville with some utilities that are like this, sometimes we'll use this truck as a hydro excavator, put some water in and vacuum out the gravels that become loose. It saved our bacon a few times with some tricky stuff, but you can only do that for so many years before it really needs a good refurb. It's been in the fleet quite a long time because it costs so much. So on an annual basis, it's not terrible, but it's a big nut to buy all at once, and I think we're getting close to that point. Next couple of years, we'll have to do something. We've looked into maybe some smaller trailer units that have similar capacity, and if you're only doing a one-off or a two-off location, a small capacity is fine. They even make some smaller truck mounted units that are just a mini version of what we've got. So I think that's probably the way we'll lean. It's a lower outlay at first, and then we can kind of free up some money to let somebody else take care of the dirty work, and especially where the manning issue the last 2 years has been one of the primary reasons we haven't been able to get to many of them. I don't see that really getting eased here anytime in the near future. So I don't want to keep intending to get to a bunch and not being able to get to them. So I think this is a good way to knock out at least the critical structures this year.
Anybody else questions?
You know, that's a hard-working piece of equipment, that's for sure. If anybody's ever seen what comes up out of those catch basins, it's an eye-opener.
That's why I say let somebody else do it.
Right. You can tell where the dog walking routes are sometimes, unfortunately. Plastic bags and et cetera.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I have a motion to award the 2021 catch basin cleaning to Triton Stormwater in the amount of $20,000.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Collis. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes 5-0.
Do you want to address the, whether you want to amend the purchasing policy at all, or do you want?
I'd rather continue to do it. I personally would continue to do it on a as-needed basis type thing. Instead of, you know, bring it in as needed, instead of just carte blanche. Me personally, that's me.
Yeah.
You're doing a department update at some point, I hope, Adam, because I have a question, but it's not specific.
I sure can. Yep. Whenever you'd like me. I think it's on for agenda 9 or 10 maybe.
Yeah, the only
I
thing
have
we
a public hearing in 5 minutes, so if you can do your update in 5 minutes, that's fine. If not,
If I had to guess, I'm
Get
going to
back-
say no,
get back in the
unfortunately,
room.
but somebody else might be able to. I could try, you know.
no, go ahead.
Saved by the
Rick,
ballot.
yours is usually pretty quick, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Let's do Rick's update.
Okay. Thanks all.
Get to the back of the room, we'll see you later. You had your chance.
Absolutely. Let's see, Parks and Recreation Department update. Programmatically, we're getting ready to start our fall programs. Our youth instructional soccer between our first, second grade, third, fourth, got about 40 kids, which is pretty good. Coming in with the whole COVID situation and everything, that's a pretty solid number. Starting registration for our men's basketball. Getting ready for some October pumpkin stuff that'll be coming up, so getting ready for all that. Staffing wise, we're okay there, we're doing all right. Right now we still have our seasonal grounds position going, and then Mike, myself, and doing all the facility stuff. I do gotta say, Mother Nature's been such a wonderful thing for the grass. It's virtually insane.
Wet, hot.
It's insane to try and keep up with. It's epic. And now we're into the sports season, so all the high school athletic events between the middle school, between the high school, and all that. So we're pretty straight out in the grounds area. As far as facilities go, I mean, Surratt Field's doing fine, everything's going good there, Louis Street's doing fine. We'll be shutting down the irrigation probably the beginning of October, somewhere around there. The sports complex will actually host its first football game this coming Sunday. So gotta get down there, and we still gotta get the grass down a little lower. That grass is growing like crazy too, but we'll get it down, get it ready for their first home game on Sunday. The painter thing, if you guys all know, I mean, it's going pretty good. There's a learning curve, I do have to admit. So it's going very well. We do have an issue. I got to bring some bad news to the table. At Barnard Park, our 3-phase electrical system, which powers the pool pumps, is a fire hazard. It got shut down the other day, like Thursday, when the electrician was over there doing the CCTV install. Went down and found that the power box was hot to the touch. So he ended up calling Eversource. Eversource came in, they opened the box, and all the wires are melted and not looking good.
They red tag it.
So they shut it down. I'm working on trying to figure out what that is going to cost. The contractor who's doing this CCTV right now threw me an estimate on what it would cost, and it's like $22,000. Haven't really looked at it, haven't gotten into it. I will bring it up with the commissioners on Wednesday night, and I think I'll have better answers after that. But that would, I mean, that's one of those things, right at this very moment, you don't need the three-phase because the pool's not running, all right? But you will absolutely need it come that time. That's what I got.
Thank you, Rick. And it is, you can ask Rick questions after we get done with our public hearing, which is scheduled for 6:45. And scheduled public hearing is number 1 of 2 for the adoption of the waterfront ordinances. In accordance with New Hampshire RSA 41:14-B, the Select Board is conducting this public hearing to accept public input on 2 proposed ordinances. The waterfront at the East Union Sewer Pump Station ordinance. The purpose of this ordinance is to promote a more orderly use of the waterfront area of the sewer pump station located at 27 East Union Street, tax map 34, lot 177, to include the parking area along the waterfront access road. It is intended to eliminate alcohol use within the waterfront area, restrict usage times, littering, and glass containers. Also, the waterfront and Parks and Recreation building ordinance. The purpose of this ordinance is to promote a more orderly use of waterfront area of the Parks and Rec building located at 155 South Mass Street, tax map 31, lot 19, to include the waterfront access road. It is intended to eliminate alcohol use within the waterfront area, restrict usage times, littering, and glass containers. This is the first public hearing on these proposed ordinances. A second public hearing is scheduled for 9/27/21 at 6:45 p.m. The Select Board's vote shall take place no sooner than 10 days, no later than 21 days after the second public hearing is held, in accordance with New Hampshire RSA 41:14-B. I will open the public hearing at this time to receive any input. Andrew, please say your full name.
Andrew Carteret, resident of Goffstown. My only concern is the 9 o'clock. I think the time of no trespassing is from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. and 9 seems early. I'm not sure exactly when the sun goes down on June 21st, but I think the sun's still out at 9 o'clock. And I've been at the Park and Recs and have seen people heading down there to fish after 8, so it just seems a little early. I would push it back to 10, something like that. That's what I'd like to say.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? David?
David Beeman. I'm just curious, have there been issues that this is in response to? I'm just not familiar with it. It's
Yes, there's
generally,
been issues. Yeah, down at the pump station, there's been quite a few issues.
Generally, I guess I'm of the nature of I don't see a need for regulation unless there's something to address. And
Yeah, there is issues down there. That's why this was brought up. Actually, it was brought up by the sewer department.
mostly with partying, glass littering, things like that.
Numerous things.
Parking everywhere.
Yeah.
All right, just
Trespassing
curious.
on adjoining properties. So the intent was kind of to make them all consistent with one another.
Yeah.
Since they're all town-owned waterfront properties.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Alan Garfield, sort of continuing on something that Andy said, that made me think, is it possible to have a different curfew time at different times of the year? Certainly in November, probably 9 o'clock, that won't be a problem for anybody, but during the summer months, there could be a longer, a later curfew for people who want to fish. I know going for hornpout is usually a late evening thing, and some couple might want to go for a romantic canoe ride down into the lake on a beautiful June evening. So if it's possible, it's not too confusing to have a different curfew time, different times of the year. It might make sense.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you all for your input. That's valid points. we'll close the public hearing at this time, and again, we'll hold our second public hearing at 9/27/21 at 6:45. Thank you. And next, we'll bring up Chief Sereno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Department head updates. Mine should be pretty quick. Really quick, so far we're all doing well, healthy. As you all know, it was the first week of school that came with its challenges. To give the board some perspective, it seems to me that we're one of the only unique agencies that participates in the joy of watching our community kids go to school and help them safely arrive and leave at the end of their school day. But the school district changed their pattern at a couple of the schools of pick up and drop off. Obviously, with the bus driver shortages, the superintendent had asked parents if they could to drive their kids to school, which usually in that 15-minute drop-off period, putting about 400 cars to any one of those schools is challenging. The men and women of the Goffstown Police Department, I'm very proud of that they were there to professionally help all of the parents who were trying their best to figure out what was supposed to be going on to help guide them in the right positions. But at the end of the day, we got it done, and it was a long 3 days of school and Tuesday, the 4th day, but it was rewarding to see everybody get there safely.
Been a lot of kudos I've seen on the way it was handled. Good job.
Thank you. It definitely, we used a lot of resources, I'll be honest, we did, but that's typically what we do every school year. And hopefully, it seems like right now Mountain View's still a little bit of an issue as there's just a lot of parents dropping off, and that getting out of that road of Tibbetts Hill is challenging. So we're just trying to anticipate if we're gonna keep an officer up there for a little bit, or we're just gonna monitor it from a distance, and if it gets out of hand, we'll help out. But for right now, we're doing all right, so thank you for that. Personnel-wise, I feel like the last time I sat in front of you, I said we were pretty much fully staffed, but unfortunately we had two of our new mothers dispatchers who resigned due to a few things. So we're down a couple in dispatch, but the good news is I'm working a conditional offer right now on another one. I guess I'll say it publicly. One of our former dispatchers who left thinking the grass was greener somewhere else realized it wasn't, and she's coming back, hopefully. So that's good news for us. Everything else personnel-wise is pretty good. Cruisers, they're being built now. Hopefully we'll take delivery next month, hopefully. And the other big thing is, as you know, we're looking to see if we can resolve our radio issues. We've been working with a radio consultant. That consultant has delivered us a rough draft of an RFP that I'm hopefully going to be able to deliver to the board at the end of the month here for your review and see if you guys approve it. We're still exploring options for grants and other federal money that we could use to kind of offset the cost of any kind of project we need to get done. And other than that, that's kind of where we're at as of right now.
Thank you. Anybody got anything for Chief?
Thanks, Chief. All right.
Like you said, good job on the traffic.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're still looking for a crossing guard. If anybody knows anybody that wants a job.
Clawless is retired, you know.
Well, Al Baines did it for a long time, so I'm sure he can come down and help you out. But yeah, we're looking if anybody knows.
Jim, what are you up to in your spare time?
Yeah, I could walk down to the Elm Street.
Over my pay grade.
We're looking for the Maple Ave post or.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, nope.
Use the taser. Adam, you want to come up and finish?
Sure. Be the yin to the police chief's traffic yang.
That's what I was just going to hint. One guy got it done, the other guy didn't. So
Don't beat around the roundabout now. Get right to it.
All right, I'll move item number 7 up to item number 1. How's that? Okay, so as previously alluded to, police has been doing a great job trying to reduce the traffic, and unfortunately we've broken one of the cardinal sins of DPW and made somebody else's life more difficult than it had to be. Roundabout, as everybody knows, we didn't finish by the time school was back in session, which had been the goal from last February, I think, when we, even before that, when we talked about it.
Numerous conversations about
Yes,
that.
numerous. Without getting into the nitty-gritty too much, the wettest July on record for a while didn't help us. We have a lot of contractors that unfortunately have to come in multiple times because it's a sequential process, mainly curbing and cobblestone installation. So the way it worked out, we're substantially done, but we had some of the small cobbled area and flush curb area as you enter the roundabout from the Manchester side, and then a slight area on the Wallace splitter island that had to be pushed back, and then a small ring of cobbles around the inside of the island that weren't done. So unfortunately, we still have Barrel City over there. We tried to clear as much as we could before school started and get it at least clean and let things go for a week plus to get folks settled in. But we spent that first week of school kind of scouting out the area, trying to see what time traffic for the high school died down and what time the queue on 114 cleared. We had that pretty well nailed down. We gave the Tri-State Curbing was the next contractor in for some flush curb last week. We gave them the please don't start until after 8 o'clock because at 7:51 was our time when the school bell rang, and about 5 minutes later that traffic clears out. Well, if you send folks away from the roundabout at 8 o'clock, unfortunately the aforementioned traffic at Maple Ave and Mountain View doesn't clear until about 8:30. So we impacted that traffic negatively by sending folks away from the roundabout project. So it was nice and maybe not nice and quiet, but quieter on the roundabout, but not so much over on the parallel path. So lesson learned, obviously. We've got the cobblestone contractor was scheduled for tomorrow. I just got notice today that they are delayed again. They won't be until Thursday, allegedly, but we've got rain in the forecast, so your guess is as good as mine if that's going to happen. But the plan right now is Thursday. We've got a plan not to start there until well after 8:30, so the traffic on both sides of the river will be pretty well died down, and then we can divert again or encourage people to use that second channel. So hopefully we don't have a redo of that. It was a pretty good tie-up last week. Okay, so back around to unless there were any other questions about roundabout.
Now, just a comment, much improved, even to this point, even though it's not complete, it is much improved going through that Wallace Road roundabout.
It seems to be. We've still got a little bit of a constriction as you enter because of that curb. Unfortunately, the bump out still has to be there, and we had to barrel it off. Otherwise, the new curb would get knocked back before it gets supported. But it seems to be much better for trailers to get around. I think there's always going to be the onesie twosie. Some people can't. I can't drive a trailer in my own house without hitting the bush every now and then. So I'm sure others can't, and we'll get it. But for the most part, I think the professional drivers anyway, now that they can make the turn once we get everything out of there, it'll be a big improvement for sure. The only other thing I should note on that, the last real thing that we'll see over there is going to be the fence. So if you might remember, the arborvitae that was impacting the right-of-way in some sections all got removed. So that's going to be replaced, I believe. Anyway, the final answer is going to be a stockade fence that'll sit back from the right-of-way away from the snow removal. So should see that go up at some point, get their privacy back that was installed when the original project happened. Okay, so staffing wise, as the chief noted, we're same at DPW. Everybody's been happy and healthy. I do not have any update on the new assistant town engineer that was expected with the due date of last week, but I might have some good news here in the next couple days for Sarah Weirdy's expected baby. We are still short one full-time truck driver. We've had a few extended absences for various reasons, and we've pulled staff from highway to fill, and it's kind of made things a little bit difficult, but we've kind of rearranged all the dominoes and still try to get the majority of the road plan done, especially. There's going to be a couple items that I'll probably be coming to you in the fall to officially say we're probably not going to make it, but it's looking like a little section of East Union that we had to pick up where we left off last year. That was complicated by some extra drainage concerns around the bus depot, as well as maybe a thought to ahead at the intersection of Mast. Maybe we ought to take our time and do something a little bit different there with the angle that traffic currently comes in, maybe if we realign, but there's a pole with a lot of utilities on it right in that section, and it's going to be a lot longer than a month or two to get all those moved if we do want to do anything. So
pump the brakes on that one a little bit, but I think we'll probably come to you and let you know it's officially not going to get done this year, just based on those complications. We like to do it right rather than rush it. We did have a small stretch of overlay Elm Street, Main to Maple Ave, that didn't get done with the last piece because there was a sewer crossing. I think we're going to let that one go as well, just based on the timing of the year with school back in session. There's not really a great time to tear that up at this point. The sewer line did not get done either, so I don't want to make their job any harder when that time comes. And then Louis Street, we had a planned coordinated project with the sewer department. They've got a sewer line to replace the whole length of Louis Street. They weren't able to line up contractors to bid initially, and then they finally did, but based on the bidding window, it's unlikely they're going to get anybody in by the end of the fall to even start. So we've got that one on the back burner that if they jump in and start doing sewer work next year, we'll come in and do our piece as well and try to share the cost of the pavement when we're done. Line striping, so the road markings between paint availability nationwide and then the rains, that's also been pushed off. We contract that out. We've tried to do as many of the markings of our own that we do crosswalks and stop bars in town, but the contracted striping has been delayed. We put in the call for that early spring, and it's been until now. They are supposed to come in starting tomorrow night and Wednesday night. Again, with the rain Wednesday, that might affect day 2, but hopefully you should see some darkened up lines in the next couple days.
So Adam, there's a nationwide paint shortage?
There was. I don't know if that's kind of cleared through, but it's kind of like along with, I think, the petroleum products in general, because of the plastic demand, kind of that dragged everything else into that spiral.
There's a shortage now for electronic car components.
Yeah, I saw that on the news.
The factories are starting to slow down making cars. It affects everything.
All the stuff that you didn't realize were also interconnected, at one point, because plastic bottles aren't getting recycled in China, and then, that changes paint pricing over here. Warren Ave project, the middle and upper sections have now been paved. As of today, the upper section got paved this morning. We've got some drainage to be reopened now that the paving is done, and some berm to pave and driveways to blend in, as well as some slope work. But then we'll jump over to Pine Hill and start that phase of that project. Gas company finished up their work on Pine Hill today to adjust a couple of the areas that were conflicts for our new drainage. Glenwood project is ready for paving. That allegedly was going to be this morning, but I think they got pulled away, so it sits ready for pavement. So I expect maybe this week, if they don't get rained out, we'll see that paved. Only the section, though, where the water department came in to do, so from the western end of the Glenwood neighborhood has been started. So we finished everything up to the point where they had stopped their patch, so there won't be any trench work. We'll pick back up. That's a good fall project, so we'll try to get the Pinardville area projects done, and then we'll flop back over to Glenwood and try to finish the fall over there. The Pershing project and the Catamount project plans are in progress. Pershing's nearly done, so we'll have that neighborhood meeting soon, and then our third crew should be able to get into Pershing and start that once the Glenwood project is buttoned up. Catamount's going to be another one with Glenwood. That'll be a fall, kind of end the year. We can kind of get off the main roads for that in case weather turns and we have to leave something open. Mentioned the roundabout, of course. We did have another, I won't call it a near miss yet, but close, over at the landfill. You might recall years ago there was a pretty massive drainage issue at the landfill. Lost a pretty good chunk of the landfill cover as a result of the embankment washing out under the lines into the river. So at the end of that project, we were left with a drainage system that has 3 inlets, a primary inlet and then a secondary overflow. Great, that's only a couple feet higher, and then a tertiary overflow that's several feet higher. The primary inlet got clogged during this tropical storm Henri timeframe, so we're getting a lot of rain, a lot of debris was getting washed. Primary inlet's not very big. That got clogged. The secondary inlet was underwater, and come to find out we had tires that had made their way just big enough to make their way into the system and clog the outlet of the third. They all kind of feed into the same eventual pipe that goes out and into the river. So quite a bit of work there to get things vacuumed down with the Vector truck and get the tires out. But we're coming up with a few new solutions to try to prevent the larger debris certainly from getting in there, because we don't want to be in that boat again where we lose a big piece of the landfill because it's underwater. So that's going to be a critical one. Not a big dollar cost type thing, but definitely, from a preventative measure, we want to make sure we get that before another couple of years go by and it gets lost in the shuffle. Excavator, I mentioned it's on municipal bid. That closes next week. My plan was to bring it to the next board meeting the following Monday for award. I think the last time we had one on municipal bid, you might have voted early to award to the highest bidder if we wanted to do that. I didn't know if you wanted to do the same thing or if you want me to come in Monday night with the name of the winning bid.
You just said the highest bidder.
Mm-hmm. Yep, this is for the sale of the excavator.
Oh,
Sorry.
the sale of
Yep.
the, yeah,
Yep.
well, yeah. Let's see, what the hell are you talking about? The highest bidder.
I'd like to award to the high bid. Yes, yeah, and this is one case we like the highest bidder. So board discretion, of course, on that, but I don't know if you had a preference or not. I think I've got the bids closing at noon on Wednesday, so it's not a terribly long time from the end of the auction to the vote, but they do like to get the answers as soon as we can.
Just bring it in.
Okay. And then last item, not a fun one, but we kind of knew this was coming because of the action matrix for a few weeks there. Our curbside packer truck 374, we had a undiagnosed at the time engine issue, so we had a no-start condition with a loss of coolant. The EGR, the exhaust gas recirculation system, so kind of an emissions control thing that's come into the last few years for diesel engines in particular. There's a cooler that cools that exhaust gas before it sends it back into the engine for processing to get rid of some of the contaminants. Well, the cooler had a pretty significant crack in it. Come to find out the reason the coolant was lost and the engine wouldn't start is that the engine had been hydro-locked. If the cooler cracks, the coolant can, if it's bad enough, overnight it can drain down into the engine, and now you're where there should be oxygen in the engine to help combust. You actually have coolant on one side and fuel on the other, and that's what happened. Engine oil on the other, rather. So, pretty significant amount of tear down at New Hampshire Cummins, as Cummins engine, so we sent it straight there because we kind of anticipated it was going to be the worst case scenario. It was pretty bad, but we didn't lose the engine. But between the EGR cooler, I think the turbo, a couple other components, plus all the manpower to get it torn down, it was a almost $17,000 bill, $16,998. So, did submit a PO, but as an emergency, because we didn't know at the time, we only have 3 of these trucks, we need to keep them in service, so really when anything happens with those, if we can't fix it, immediately send it and got to get it back online. So we sent it out, but as the purchasing policy has a little clause for emergency POs, I'm supposed to come to you and let you know, FYI, when we use that measure. We had to, unfortunately, in this case, but it's back on the road. Driver said it's been running great in the last few days, so there's that.
I hope so, for $18,000, I think better run good.
It's a big chunk, yeah, big chunk. But it's a hairy couple days, especially when you're down to those last 2. We called around just to see if anybody, Pinard or otherwise, would even have a truck available, even a manual, throw it in the back type thing, and there was none to be found, so I'm not sure what the plan would have been. It would have been to pick up everything with one truck, but then you're working into the nights and maybe weekends to get, all the barrels picked up, so. We lucked out again. We were able to keep just the 2 trucks going, but I think sooner or later it's going to get us. So I might come to you during CIP in the future or budget season or something, maybe talk about hanging on to one of these so we have 4 trucks, just an extra spare. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of fleet creep, but this might be one where the pucker factor, overwhelms that. So, hate to end it on a low note. I've probably got some good news somewhere in there, but that's what I've got. Maybe I'll get a text message when I sit down that there's a new baby in the DPW family.
Hill House is listening. How are the recycling prices?
Pretty good. So they've trended sharply in the good direction from a commodity perspective. So our material, especially in Goffstown, is pretty clean. So the rates nationwide, though, and globally probably are improving quite a bit from where they were this time a year ago. I think we were on the verge of maybe it was going to cost us more to send the recycling because of the haul distance than it does to send trash. So about $60-70 across the scale plus the cost of haul. We're down. I think the last number we had was like $14 a ton. So cut and quarter almost of where it was a year ago. So that's
That's a good news piece, there you go.
There you go. See, I was trying to
I appreciate that.
Trying to help you out a little bit. Anybody got any questions, comments?
I was gonna ask Adam the question, but I think it's a bigger question maybe opposed to Derek. Do we have any sense or any feel, even if it's anecdotally, as to what percentage of our town employees are vaccinated?
We have not asked that question.
That's why I said even anecdotally, I mean, yeah. Okay, just
I'd
curious.
hazard a guess about half at DPW, but
Okay,
total guess.
yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Derek, you got anything you want to?
Yeah, as you see, we did, over Labor Day weekend, we had a vendor in to install new stair treads to improve the safety going in and out of the building. We're starting on our 2022 budget development. Danielle has rolled that out to departments, so we'll be coming to you in October with the budget process. I will be communicating the calendar. I'm waiting on one last date to confirm. Everybody here is healthy. Our building secretary started last week. Unfortunately, our assessing secretary is leaving, so we're going to be reposting that position and trying to get somebody in. But otherwise, we're keeping an eye on the local fiscal recovery funds, the ARPA funds, the $1.9 million. It's still an interim final rule, but we'll be bringing that back to the board to decide how you want to use that over the next 3 years.
Have we set I know in the past we've set like a target on percentages on the budget increase. Are we going to do that, or?
If you'd like to, yes, I can bring those questions. Like I said, departments are doing that right now, so if you want to, I don't know how you want to approach that. Historically, budget discussion has really focused on tax rate. You want to focus, because it's going to be difficult with appropriations this year because fire department's going to be up a SAFER grant. So it doesn't impact the amount of taxes that we collect because there is going to be an offsetting revenue. We also expect meals and rooms to be up considerably next year. It'll be up about $400,000 in the second year of the state budget, so that's going to be up considerably. So I don't know if you want to set a percentage for department heads to come in with. That's something we could absolutely, I know that we would appreciate that direction.
What does everybody else think? We've done that in the past on calls.
I don't know, others? Kick the ball over this way.
No, just, you know, you've been around,
Yeah.
Mark, you've all done this, you know.
Yeah.
What were the previous numbers that we used, Derek?
Yeah.
So we got a baseline to start with.
You haven't done it at my time as town administrator. I don't know if they did. I don't think we did when Adam was here. It's probably been many years since we've done it. So yeah, so that's definitely something that we haven't done. I think historically we've looked at, I've tried to shift the discussion of budgets to how much taxes are collected, not necessarily what that appropriation is, not necessarily what that tax rate is. We've started looking at preliminary tax rates of what's coming in. There's still a lot of unknowns. Hopefully more of those are locked down for the meeting on the 27th to bring back to you. I know the school was able to return a significant portion to reduce the school side of the tax rate. And I believe the county is also using some of their federal funds to do similar. So, but what we've looked at over, I think it was over the past 10 years, I don't have the number, our appropriation or the amount that we collect it's been about 1% increase a year. We're actually been below inflation, which is a little bit scary that we perhaps our budget, especially for our capital items, is maybe not, that much. So,
The way you put that is, are you saying we may not be spending as much as we should be?
Potentially, I know.
No, I'm just saying, the way he was kind of skirting around it there.
I think if you take a look around this building, there was a reason I jumped on those stair treads, even though that was not a budgeted project. I will tell you that in developing my budget here, you are going to see a larger facility maintenance number. I think in an effort to maintain that, quite honestly, we've had a level tax rate on the town side or decrease for a few years now.
Yep.
And what, unfortunately, I think to get there, we as department heads, or I can speak for myself, is perhaps on some of these items that we probably should be fighting more for, you know, the upkeep of our capital facilities, that we need to be coming in and fighting for that.
But we've also shifted a lot of our thinking towards IT and, you know.
Absolutely, yep, the IT budget, as we have become so technology dependent in all the departments, yes, the IT budget has grown quite a bit, absolutely.
All right, so I think that's something we should think about.
There's a big chunk of that cybersecurity, I would assume.
Absolutely.
IT, yeah.
I know that is fresh on the, I did share an email with everybody about the incident in Peterborough. I will say, as we've learned more about that, there was definitely a cyber component to that, but I think there was also some policies and procedures in that case that could have been adhered to a little bit better. And, you know, talking with our finance staff, we have those policies and procedures in place to prevent that. So as long as people are following the procedures that we have in place, we shouldn't have a similar, but it's definitely something IT's always working against. Yeah.
Great. I think the fire chief's up next, right? I'm sorry about making him wait. Thanks, Derek. I mean, we've got things to look at here in the next month or so.
Hello again. I just have a few things. I did want to touch on COVID, since that seems to be in the news more and more every day now. So on the 8th, I looked at the Goffstown numbers. We're at 43 cases. I think it was this morning or last night I looked at it, was at 44. So they've gone up a little bit over the last few weeks. In the state of New Hampshire, 54% of folks are fully vaccinated. Here in Goffstown, it's still around 39.8% was the last number I looked up. The state started holding monthly meetings again, so monthly conference calls, so they're monitoring it closely. Some of the information that we got last year as first responders, we are not getting now, so when we're going on calls, we're not aware of some situations that may be out there, so it's a little concerning as a department head, but at this time, all of our employees remain healthy. The recruitment and retention, I certainly want to thank Selectman Georgiantis last week for swearing in a whole bunch of people, and thank you to the board members who were able to make it. It was a great event that Stonebridge Country Club hosted for us, and it was excellent. The families, it was very well received, so thanks for doing that for us.
One of our good jobs.
Yeah.
And all those members now are actually on groups. They finished their recruit school. They're on their working groups now, continuing with their probationary training. I want to touch again once on Station 19. A few weeks back, I talked about there's a crack in the floor and kind of the building separating. We're still waiting for formal quotations from an engineering company to determine a path forward. We don't want to fix the floor just in case it has to do with the building separating between the floors. So that's still ongoing. Again, just looking for formal quotations on that. At Station 18, we have an ongoing issue with DES and PFAS contamination in the area and groundwaters. They submitted a plan to DES, our company that we've been working with. DES approved it on Friday, so I'll be coming back forward to the board in a couple weeks with that proposal that they're presenting to us. And I think at the last meeting I mentioned, the finance director had said that we potentially could use some ARPA funds for that. She's nodding yes again, so that's great. Real quick, 2 upcoming events, just to note to the public in general. On September 25th at the New Hampshire Fire Academy, they'll be honoring Steve Tower at their firefighter memorial at the New Hampshire Fire Academy. That's at 10 a.m. on September 25th. And then again, also with regards to Captain Tower, in Emmitsburg, Maryland, at the National Fire Academy, the 40th annual National Firefighters, Fallen Firefighters Weekend Steve Tar will also be honored down there. And there are the family is going down there, and I think a few of our members will be traveling there as well. And the last thing I have is just a quick apparatus note. We do have one apparatus out of service as Engine 6. It actually had a turkey fly into the windshield and destroy the windshield.
Wow.
So that's being, claim has been placed, and we're going to be replacing that. But
And did that turkey end up on the plate the next day, or?
I couldn't find it. They did stop and look and let the people in the area know that they may find a turkey around, but no, they weren't able to find it. It did do quite a number on the windshield.
You want to maybe just touch on the dog rescue?
Yes. Yeah, so we were called, there was a dog, I'm trying to think what weekend it was, Labor Day weekend that had been struck several days earlier by an automobile. Hikers were out on the trails trying to locate it. A hiker did locate the dog, called the fire department to see if we could help. So we went up there with a Stokes basket and a wheel that we were able to get the dog, get it back down the mountain in safety. So it was a great rescue. It's kind of one of those moments that we all like to hear. It's kind of one of those feel-good stories. And the last I heard, the dog may have a long road to recovery, but was doing okay. So.
Right. Mark, you had questions, or?
Chief, back when you mentioned the 911, not the 911 dispatch center, they're not asking that question about COVID anymore?
Correct.
Can we come up with a deal or something with Chief Serino to protect our employees on the fire service? Can we just ask that one question in there? Is there anybody in the family with COVID or anything? Just, I mean, so we don't end up, putting our employees in danger. Is
Yeah,
that something-
I'll talk with the police chief. I know there was a couple of them that actually came through with notification for us ahead of time.
Yeah.
But that's certainly the first question when we arrive on scene. It's the first question we ask.
Yeah,
So.
just to give us more protection is what I'm
That's the
looking.
911, that's the problem, right?
Yeah,
They're not asking.
So last year they were doing, they had a certain protocol that they followed prior, and they would pass that information to Goffstown dispatch. They're not doing that right now.
Anything else for the chief?
Chief, can I do a check on the numbers? Did you say the statewide vaccination rate is 54%?
54.1.
And Goffstown's 39?
39.8.
Get vaccinated, people, come on.
I don't believe those numbers anyway. I'm still gonna argue those like that.
I never did get a response to that question that we originally
They
had.
didn't, they count the population at, Carlos, they count the population, but in Manchester.
they're missing,
In
they're missing Pinardville.
Yeah, but that
And nursing home.
doesn't,
Pinardville nursing home.
regardless of the numbers, get vaccinated.
Anything else?
Nope.
That's it, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks.
We move on to new business. Anybody got anything to bring up? How about old business? Take a look at the accident matrix. We're still working on number 1.
Yeah, we'll have those for you next, at your next meeting, some of those items that are identified there. We've got a draft that'll be going up to department heads this week so they can review those before they come to you.
Okay. And on the village bridge, where do we want to do with this? Do we want to just change that to some kind of a different committee or something?
Design review.
Design committee?
Design review committee.
Yeah.
Then, of course, we're still waiting on the Moose Plate grant, right?
Yes.
And that's it. And we just heard from the chief about the turkey strike.
So if I can just back up, Peter, if I could, on the pedestrian bridge. Last meeting, I'd asked to have us to look at this agreement, whatever it is, between the Rotary Club and the town of Goffstown as to who owns what and what is what, because I don't know if there's anything in writing, and it should be formalized as to how this whole thing works rather than a handshake agreement. And I'd like to see it on the action matrix so that we can follow it forward and tie that up.
But I don't think the question on Carlos is, they do have, there's 2 different questions there, if I understand. One is they own the piece of property that's not the whole common, that's not the whole piece. Okay? And then the agreement that they control that Rotary Park, it's what it's called, because they do all the maintenance on it. So, what is your question? What do you want to do, put it in writing?
Why don't we formalize this, so we know exactly who's responsible for what?
Okay.
Where the money's coming from, who's participating in it, so that, you know, down the line, everybody understands what's going on, who's responsible for it.
Not a problem with
That's all,
that.
Peter. I just,
That makes sense.
I wouldn't mind taking on that lead and reaching out to them, because I have been in conversations with that group lately, so.
Okay, that'd be great.
I'll see I'll get something together and maybe
yeah, that'd be cool.
get together with them and we could sit
Yeah.
down and have them come in one night or something.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a big, huge effort, I mean, just,
No.
you know, let's just get it down, so it's,
But there's questions, there's things that are happening
Yeah.
over there and, you know.
and let's
that-
memorialize it, that's all.
Right,
Yep.
I get it. Anything else? Okay, on our last public comment, is there anybody here for public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. We'll be going into non-public session. Mark?
Non-public session, RSA 91A:32 dash for dismissal, A for dismissal, and C matters of which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than member of the public body itself.
I just add that if we could add A, compensation as well.
A, compensation
As well.
as
Second.
well.
Now it's a roll call, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Mark?
Yep.
Me, yes?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. Jim. That'll conclude our public portion of tonight's meeting.